course. I would love to open this up. First, in Atlanta, we talked about your fantastic acting journeys. I want to open this one up by asking you, how did Dawn of the Dead come into your life?
Scott, you want to go?
Okay.
You go.
Okay. How did Dawn of the Dead come into my life?
Yes.
Well, I'll keep it brief. Okay. Chris Romero, who was then George's girlfriend, Christine Forrest, okay? She and I went to college together. We were in the theater department together. That's how this kind of originated. And then she suggested me for the role of Roger, and they came to New York to cast the leads. And that's how I got the audition, and I met George. You want to hear about the audition?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, George is very relaxed, very comfortable person, and he told me after the first round of the audition, he said, "You know, you're not really what I imagined at all." He just deliberately said that to me, and I said, "Oh, so?" And I said, "So what's the but, behind your voice?" And he said, "Well, I've already cast this guy who's about 6'5", and he's like twice your size, and meaning Ken Forey." And he said, "You'll be on the screen with him most of the time." And it just came out of my mouth. I think it's because Romero's so comfortable. I said, "George, the audience is not going to give a shit about that after the first 5 minutes." And he laughed. And then later that night I saw him and said, "Okay, you got the part." Yeah, there was another round of audition at Club Act.
Buffy?
Well, I knew nothing about George. I knew nothing about Night of the Living Dead. I had never seen his other films before. So a friend of mine who is an actress was in an acting class of mine. She goes, "Oh my God, they're looking for blondes. Go audition." And she ended up as the suburban Sarah Venables. She was a suburban housewife in Martin. I don't know if you all seen it. That's Sarah, yeah. So I went to the audition knowing nothing, and I had this monologue at the time, and it was, I changed it a little bit. It was something about, are you safe, and and then the person crosses the street, and they're not safe, something happens to them, and it's, what does it mean and to be safe? And George, I finished the monologue, and George looked at me, and he goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry about your friend." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Oh, they were run over by a car." I said, No, George, I was acting." So he said, "Oh," I scared him. So then it was like a couple of, I think a couple of other auditions, and then he gave me the part. And then we all got together in New York, and I saw Night of the Living Dead for the first time, and I went, "Oh my God, what is this?" And that's why I think I had a conversation with George. I said, "I'll be in this film, but no screaming and no crying. I wasn't going to be that female heroine that was constantly afraid." He said, "Okay, that's a deal."
Beautiful.
So tell me, what was the most challenging scene to shoot?
Shoot?
Yeah.
Camera-wise?
Yeah. As an actor, for you guys, what was the most challenging?
Well, I think, I sort of stayed out of the blood, which was great. My favorite scene was George rewrote the script while we were working, because I said that, I think the girl is not getting the sort of power moment that she needs. So that's when he rewrote the script, and I come in and I said, "I would have made you all breakfast, but I don't have my pots and pans, and I want to learn to fly the helicopter." And that was my favorite part. And then I think the most challenging is the scene you'll never see, which is when George decided and then changed his mind that I was going to die at the end. So we had to prepare for that, and the helicopter was supposed to chop off my head, and we were working all day to prep for that, and we did shoot it, we did film it, but it's lost somewhere in the stratosphere.
I remember that so well.
My death scene that never shows.
Yeah, your death scene we never saw. I was always curious about it.
It's gone.
So the question was,
What was the most challenging scene for you to shoot?
the most challenging scene? Actually, there were a lot of challenging scenes, apart from the obvious physicality and the physical aspect of it. Was probably the scene of when I tried to come back, and I thought, how am I going to handle that? Coming in and out of consciousness, some remnant that something was still there, but he didn't really know, but sensed that there was still a thread, and he's struggling, and blah, 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 blah. So I just thought, I just made up my own way to get there, and made my own choices, and George was happy with it. And I just said one thing to him. I said, George, try not to blow me away on the screen. And he said, well, why? And I told him, I said, I don't think, in the script and the story, I do think that Roger is innately a sympathetic character, so I think it might be a bad move for the audience to see him blown away on screen. And he agreed. Okay.
And what was the most fun scene for you to shoot?
Running through the mall, watch this, picking up stuff, just getting really over the edge. And Kenny and I had a lot of fun with that. A lot of that stuff with the olive jar, remember that? And drinking the juice. That all just happened. That was all that was not really scripted. That was just improv. And George gave us this canvas of this physical action, and then we knew where the camera was going to be, so the follow us, and then the rest was kind of up to us.
Well, that was one of those mall nights was when I was sitting there doing nothing, and George had nothing to shoot, and came over to me and he goes, you have on your resume ice skate? And I think I put it down because actors would put down, what expertise they had and talents, and I think I ice skated when I was 6 years old. So I put it down. I go, oh yeah. He goes, well, we're going to move the whole camera crew over to the ice skating rink, which was in the mall at the time. And I went, oh my God, I haven't been on skates in like 25 years, 30 years. So I ran down to the skating rink, and there was a guy there who was in charge of the skates. And I said, you have to get me back on skates in like 10 minutes. So we did it. He did it. He got me back on skates, and it was shot MOS without sound, so you couldn't hear the skating guy going, put your head up, don't bend your, he was tutoring me around the whole rink.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then George looked at me and said, well, that was okay. I stayed up. That was the important thing. I stayed up.
Can I say a little thing about George? Which I think maybe you guys will appreciate. One of the early scenes in the film is when Fareed and myself would go down to the basement and all the zombies are eating each other. And that's when I saw Hitman. I went, oh my God, this is just disgusting. Right? And I said to George, George, this is really disgusting. And he looked at me and he just smiled. He went, yeah, I know. That was the first time I really got the humor of the movie.
Yeah.
I went, oh, okay. There's something else going on here that I did not see in the script.
Yeah.
Well, George's humor, who else would have a zombie film with a pie fight and soda, and seltzer, and let that happen? Or Tony Booba when he was stuck in a blood pressure machine that he wanted his blood pressure when the zombies are coming. There were these great moments, zombies falling into the waterfall, the pond. George would keep finding these moments that were just fun, in the middle of, this chaos.
Do we have any audience questions right now?
Right there. Yeah. You, sir. Yes, in the hat. We'll start with you.
Shout?
Yeah.
So when you were filming, your character in the film is pregnant, and throughout the film, your character as a pregnant woman is smoking and drinking. Was there? You're talking about the humor in it. Was there ever any thought of that happening? was that supposed to, or was there maybe some like existential piece where, hey, we're in this world that is in shambles, so do we even want to bring a baby into it? Was there anything there?
Well, you know what? That never came up, but you know, I suppose that among the list of things we were worried about, smoking a cigarette in a wine glass was not the most important. It was like the zombies that were going to kill us. But we never mentioned that. Maybe spam should have been eaten either. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I saw so many. Raise those hands. Yeah, let's go here.
Zombies are often used as like a metaphor for, like consumerism or sheeple. Like, what's your favorite like interpretation of that, of what the zombie is the metaphor for?
Yeah, sure, it's a metaphor for consumerism and how people blindly walk and consume. So what is the other choice, the final choice? Once everything is consumed, the only thing that's left is to eat each other, right? So that's a very obvious theme to me in the film. What were you just saying just before that?
About humor?
What was it?
I don't know.
Maybe
George's humor and the Gorio, yeah.
I don't remember.
I think, for me, the zombies were, it was interesting. I think George always felt that the zombies in some strange way were more human than the humans. They did what they did out of memory, but it was the humans, especially the motorcyclists, that ended up being villains in a sense that were about greed and taking over the mall. And the zombies just did what they did, which was somehow a metaphor for humanity. We always used to get the zombies mixed up with people who were like coming in the morning and walking in the mall because that was their exercise. So a couple of times, I said, we're wrapped, you can go home now. And then I realized they were real people and they weren't the zombies. But I think it's interesting because where George ended up going in the film that he didn't really make in Day of the Dead, the film that didn't get funded, was that the zombies ended up becoming the working class. Keep them fed, keep them in the factories. They did all the menial labor, and everybody else, as long as you fed them, they would do our work for us. And I think it's, it was pretty prophetic when you think about all the people that end up in third world countries doing work for us. And I think that's how George ended up envisioning it. And that would have been the film of Day of the Dead.
Yeah, that's his kind of thinking. It's great that what I loved about the zombies of John is that almost all of them had a profession. They had a past life. They had something where you could fill in the blanks of what that was, right? Rather than just zombies who were running around, right? And that was what was so interesting to me. And I thought kind of just prophetic, because he wasn't painting them as being bad.
Right.
Yeah, they couldn't help themselves.
So there's the remake, which I think both films are great. But I'm wondering if there's any differences between the original version and the remake that you were really drawn to or appreciated or didn't appreciate, or did you even see the remake?
I saw it, and what I feel about the remake is I have no opinion about it compared to Dawn. It was a very different movie, right? And I thought the best thing that they did was to avoid trying to emulate Romero's humor, his social commentary. They just kind of stayed away from all of that. So it became more of an action film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I thought they made a smart move, and I thought they did a good job. Basically.
Yeah, the remake to me just wasn't a George Romero film. It was just a zombie film. I think for George, Shaun of the Dead was like a legacy for him.
Yeah.
That's what he loved. It had humor, it had zombies that you could sort of identify with. And I think if George had lived, he would have loved Jordan Peele. Those kind of films where there was some sort of social message, but it was scary and funny, and that to me, I don't think that there was anything in the remake that was George. Not the character, not the humor, not the storyline. It was, like Scott said, it was an action film, and if you liked it and you went with it, like 28 Days or something, you had a good time.
Did you guys like Shaun of the Dead?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What a great movie that was. Oh my God, I laughed so much. I can tell you want to hear a funny story about that?
Of course.
There's this thing called, what's that award show in Universal City? Anyway, it's an award show, Universal City in Los Angeles. It has to do with the best new horror film and the best packaging of a previous horror film. And that year, what won that was the Dawn of the Dead box set that won best packaging, and the best film was Shaun of the Dead. So, yeah, it was like perfect. So, and I didn't know those guys. I mean, I saw Simon on screen and George and Edgar, but my favorite memory of that is that after the red carpet, or I was off it by then, and I was smoking a cigarette in the parking lot, and Edgar and Simon walked down the red carpet, and Simon, I never met him before, but he was an addict of Dawn. But he turned around and he said, "Scott!" And he yelled, and I went, "Simon!" And then we spent most of the entire evening together, and it was just so much fun. Oh my God. Yeah.
I saw Aim for the Head podcast had a question.
Yeah, Gaylen, can you talk about Creepshow and their experiences? And did you ever figure out how long you can hold your breath?
Yeah, I did. Well, George and I had a secret. We had a word in case I was really drowning there. I can't remember the word, but so because they really had this wave machine coming at me on the sand, and we did have a safe word. So that if I really was going to drown, George got a 10-second warning. I could be resuscitated. But my favorite, the favorite part of it, of course, was Leslie Nielsen. I made more money on the bloopers. That show that they had bloopers where you make mistakes, because Ted Danson and I first of all, we would sit in the makeup room at Savini, and we'd have, what was the great sci-fi film with Leslie Nielsen? Forbidden Planet. That would be on the screen. And then we would go and we would try to scare Leslie. We would, we had a million takes. We'd knock on the door, and then Leslie would open it and he'd say something, and that would be the end of that take. And George was sort of like, well, that's it, we're working with Leslie. And then Leslie, and Stephen King was around on the set too, because he was getting ready for Geordie, in the other episode, and he was so excited about being on camera. So we would go out to dinner, but of course Leslie had to take his fart machine, which he took everywhere. And he thought that was just great that we're at the restaurant, and he's, we just said, that's Leslie, he's just having a good time. But I really enjoyed working on that one. And I would say one other thing, the other episodes that, with Hal Holbrook and Fritz Weaver, these actors initially were really a little hesitant about working with George. This was a horror film director, and they didn't. And these guys, they were top of their game with great theater credits and the best, film credits, and they all adored working with George. George respected what they were going to do, and they gave it all, and they had a great time.
That's so accurate, because it's surprising sometimes that people you meet that just love Romero and what he does, and you would not expect who they are. One example?
Yeah.
There was a big event at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in LA. It was a bunch of years ago, but it was about celebrating the horror story, the state of horror in the U.S. key speaker. So, do you all know who George Lucas is? Okay, so, and I'm not making this up. We're standing outside the theater, having a cigarette, which we always used to get a cigarette. And down the sidewalk comes this very short man, walking very quickly towards us. I'm not exaggerating this at all. And he looks up and sees, George! Oh my God, I can't believe you're here. And this is George Lucas acting like a 17-year-old teenager, like fan. And it was so great to see that. And he said, we gotta work together sometime. And George said, yeah, well, let's figure that out. I thought that was really sweet.
Dawn of the Dead is still a very raw movie. Did you guys do a lot of rehearsals? Were there a lot of takes during the shooting?
I don't remember. We didn't do, no.
So not a lot of rehearsals, not a lot of takes.
Rehearsals. Maybe we'd do one or two, and then I would look at George, and George would never, say this is wrong or this is bad, but there would be this face. He would have this and then I knew he would want another or a little different. Or the other thing is that George always said, what do you want to do? Do you want to do another take? What do you want? I mean, it was very open, but it was not overly rehearsed, no.
No, that's a really good point. Except for the really physical scenes of the running, and the firing and all of that business, and there's more camera movement. All of the camera movement was rehearsed, basically. On an acting level, not a lot of rehearsal for that. George just liked what was happening. And then he said, okay, cut, let's move on. See, the thing about him is that he was so organized in his shooting process, he was able to relax. And because he relaxed, everybody was comfortable on the set with him, right? He was not an urgent person, which you can pick up from a director that being really urgent because something is happening. You as the actors pick it up. You didn't feel that way. He was just very relaxed. Whatever that means.
So during the scene when you are moving the trucks around in front of the mall doors to block them off, there at one point is a split-second shot, very short shot, where it's of zombies close up. There's one zombie, one person, no makeup. Was that intentional?
No, I don't think so. No, I think that was a mistake. What do you think?
Whoops.
Whoops.
Continuity.
There.
On the makeup note, what was like the day-to-day process of getting all of the zombies in makeup?
What was the day-to-day process of getting all the zombies in makeup?
I wasn't around. You were there, Scott. You saw
I was
zombies.
there, yeah, for some of that, yeah. Well, they were all like in a really big room. Savini, obviously, was in charge of that, and Greg Nicotero at that time, who was assisting, right? At that time, and then they had Jeannie Jeffries and a couple other people, and they were just like a makeup factory. They make people up, and sometimes the colors weren't always great. They're like too blue, they're too green, and it didn't really seem to matter too much. So that was a daily event that was very early in the morning, and they were all in this big warehouse room in the mall, and then the scenes will be set up and ready to go, and that's what we would do all day, all night. I mean, we shot all night long.
And then a lot of the people didn't want to take their makeup off, and they would go to work like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would.
You would?
I would.
Depends on the job, I guess. It depends. But some of the makeup is pretty, a few scars and blood and bite marks. They love it.
I currently work in restaurants as a waitress. I have worked at a law firm. I have worked at AT&T for in-person tech support. I would wear that makeup in all those jobs, and it would be hilarious. I'm just saying.
I did see a question right there, right?
So George Romero was able to humanize the zombies, as you guys were saying. Do you think that's possible with the new, fast zombies, or is it just too much action going on at once?
Are you talking about filming style? Because it's much more action now than anything else.
Yeah,
Is that what you mean?
being able to relate to the zombies.
Well, okay. If you look at it, you know, The Walking Dead, you know, a lot of people love that, but it's basically about people's so-called relationships, and then they start, you know, glomming on to like what is so-called current events and current relationships, and then it starts to become absurd, I think.
Yeah.
You know, it just fell right into the social environment that's actually happening around us. And, you know, what people's sexuality is, and what their gender is, and what their preference, and there was bleeding into, and I don't think it helped. I have nothing against that, but I think it helped the series. It just showed that they were, like, I thought, losing their grip on what was making the thing successful in the first place.
Well, I think you know it. Oh, I didn't interrupt you.
No, it's just one thing, because they didn't really humanize the zombies.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, I think another closely related to George, but the zombies moved quickly, is the Last of Us. And is it Last of Us, the HBO? Yeah, I mean, I think which is really brilliant, and but the zombies aren't necessarily humanized, but the story and the characters are. And I mean, I love did you all watch the episode where they go to the mall?
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty incredible because they couldn't find a mall that worked anymore. You know, they were also either over the top expensive or they were looking pretty shabby, so they had to create that whole virtual mall to as an effect. But it was really an homage to George. I will say, I think you're going to all be in for a treat coming up, because I don't know if you're aware of George's daughter Tina Romero, who is just finished her feature film, and I think the zombies are going to be terrific. It's called Queens of the Dead. A lot of drag queens in it. It's great fun. It's really beautifully shot. I think it's going to be released this year. I don't want to do any spoilers, but I don't think she had any guns in the film. They would kill each other with stiletto heels and hair products. So, but it's great. It's great. And I don't know when I think she's trying to get it for Sundance, but I'm not sure yet. But it's going to be a really good film.
So Gaylen, talking about that, her film, what similarities and differences did you notice in her directing style versus her father's?
I can't say. I'm sort of.
Yeah.
We can't talk about it.
Got it.
Because was I there or not there? We don't know.
True.
Well, maybe just as a person, because you know her, you've known her.
I think Tina has her father's sense of humor,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
and her, she inherited that from her father. And actually, I think she's been working on the script for a very long time. And George would look at it and comment on it. So, she had his advice as she was going through it. But I think it's going to be terrific.
Can't wait.
Cannot wait. So keep an eye out for that for sure. I know I saw more hands up there, didn't I? All right. Yes.
I want to ask them.
Yeah. Yes. Steve, sorry.
For both of you, Gaylen, can you talk about
Speak up,
filming
please.
Real loud.
Can you talk about filming the scene with the Hare Krishna? And Scott, can you talk about shooting the scene with Jeannie Jeffries in the cab?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
No, I was the Hare Krishna. You were Jeannie Jeffries.
Jeannie Jeffries in the cab.
No, I know.
Oh, you went there. Okay.
I was there. I remember him. Mike Christopher.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're talking about the scene that Gaylen did with him?
Yes.
Oh, and the scene I did with Jeannie.
Yeah.
The scene with Jeannie was kind of strange, to be honest. It was her, I don't know if it was her first acting role. She was very lovely, very cooperative and whatnot. I felt like the whole scene was kind of hurried, frankly, when we were shooting it. And she was very nice and very considerate. But I just felt it was hurried. And one of the things that suffered from that was when there's a cutaway from me and then away and then back to me, and I sit up, and there's much less blood on my face. And that's a continuity problem. Things like that slip through the cracks. And that was because they were hurried.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, well, I think he's funny, you saw, when the nun was trapped in the penny store and I wanted to, shoot her, George said, no, she's a nun. And I said that she's dead, and George said, yeah, but she's a nun. So he made me let her go. But I guess the Hare Krishna guy didn't count. That was fair game. But, George was, he had his Catholic moments there. Especially you saw him in Martin, when he was a drunken priest, a little bit of that. So, yeah.
Out of all the versions of the film that exist, is there one that you guys prefer personally? And have you seen them all?
I haven't.
I
like the 3D.
Yeah,
That was fun.
I never saw it.
You never saw it?
No.
Anybody see the 3D version? He did a good job. He did a good job.
What was it like working with David?
Oh, I love working with David. He was a very funny person. After the shoots, we'd get together with him, and we'd go down to the bar, have a drink, and my biggest memory of him really moves me. We laughed all the time about nothing. It didn't matter how thrilled we would just laugh and make fun of things and how absurd the world is. And he was a really great heart and a great human being, very funny person. So it was sad when he died. You want to comment?
And he was a great zombie. He was like one of the best zombies ever. And also, David was actually the only military actor who could really shoot a gun.
I was not.
So in the beginning of the film, in the segment when you are raiding the apartment building, can you kind of talk about what that setting that was like? Were you really in an apartment building, or you were knocking down doors and things?
Yeah, we were really in an apartment building. And as far as I remember, it was abandoned. And it was pretty dirty, pretty run down, like what it looked like in the movie. And running up the stairs with the smoke and all of that, that's my visual memory of the reality of it. It was very cramped shooting that for camera and the actors, because there's a lot of movement. Never mind, excuse me. Go away, bye. Yeah, no, what you see is pretty much the way it was. The environment on the film, from my memory of it, was exactly the same.
I would just add that, also George was really, he was ahead of his time in many ways, looking at the mall as consumerism, but also, us in Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, casting a black male lead actor, which was not happening at the time. And also, even an actress, me, and in the idea that, she was not just the fragile victim. And this was, preceding a lot of these films like Alien and Terminator, where women were the protagonists and they were not the ones that were running and screaming. So George was really quite ahead of his time, I think, in
Speak up, please.
Real loud.
How was working with Ken?
I was working with Ken.
You ready, Ken Foley? My name's Ken Foley. I love to imitate him because I would make fun of him when I first met him. You know, because he is literally twice my size.
Let me trade mics. There you go.
We rode to the set every day in my car because I was in New York, from New York. But so I drove down to Pittsburgh, so I had the car. And we were all staying in a hotel. So he rode with me to the set almost every single day. So I got to know him more. I think that's where more of the rapport between us came from, because I was making fun of him as being, 7.5 feet tall, and I'm this little guy. And he'd make fun of me that way. And he was always late, he'd stroll, I say this out of affection, and he'd be strolling in, looking at all the time in the world, and I'm looking at my watch about what time we have to be on the set. And I say, Ken, why is it taking you so long every morning, to get here? I just get here when I get here. I go, well, okay, good for you. You get in the car and shut the door, will you please? So that was some humor that we had between us.
Military background, how was that affected? Or?
I had none. I just studied other people.
Oh, okay.
Great actor here. Great actor.
And no, seriously, I studied other people, and I knew 2 cops in LA that were friends of mine. And they talked to me a lot about weapons, and how you handle them, and how you have to handle them quickly. And so you're really facile with them, and that was good. That made me feel more comfortable, but I had some knowledge about it. I always thought the irony was that David was in the military and I was not. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So before we wrap this up, Scott, you had a question.
Yeah, I have a question. This is what I'm really most curious about, is about you, okay? Because the film, and I've only asked this at 2 other conventions ever, of the audience, because the film has such a longevity, and the people who follow the film tend to be very passionate about it, so from when they were like really, really young. So what is it about this film that so sticks with you and means something to you? What is it that it means to you? I'm not trying to be erudite. I'm just asking a really honest question, because that's what I notice. People talk about it, and they talk about it like from their heart. So what is that? I'm being serious.
This is going to be a little bit corny, but I feel like it's like you think it could happen. Like
You think it could happen?
The beginning scene is so claustrophobic.
Yeah.
When society is falling apart, the news station is going off the air, and it's like, wow, everything just went to the shitter.
Yeah.
And then you guys all come together as human beings and work together to get this kind of fortress together. And you think to yourself, could I do that? Would I be the person that was the one that could figure out how to fly the helicopter, or
wow.
work with a weapon? And I think you sit there and think, in a crazy way, because it's horror and fantasy, but could this really happen?
Great. Wow, thank you.
All right, yeah.
So I remember, actually, the opening scene is the best scene of the whole movie. I love it. But anyway, I remember watching it with my dad. So just growing up, watching zombie movies. He loves zombie movies, and now I love zombie movies. But yeah, I think it just reminds me of being a kid. Everything was stress free, and so I try to show it to my little nephews and stuff. Try to keep it going.
Sweet.
Next, yes.
I think for a lot of us, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
A little bit louder, please.
Okay, I think for a lot of us, it's horror with allegory and subtext that says something is just a lot more powerful than no offense, Terrifier. Doesn't really say anything, but a horror film with just a resonant message, I suppose.
Next, yes.
Yeah, that's what I would kind of build off that. It's it's not a zombie story with humans, it's a human story with zombies.
Oh, that's great.
There are palpable scenes where you're putting on makeup and you can mirror, and you can tell that you're losing part of your humanity in this experience. And the scene where you turn, the sudden shift in your expression, where you realize that everything is gone. And there's another line too from Ken later when he's aiming the gun at the bikers. He says, "This is ours. We found it first." It peeks more into the human side than it does the zombie side.
Thank you.
Over here? Yeah.
I would think that, with it taking place at the mall, just that Americana, I think just growing up, it's just, I don't know, maybe malls are going away, but like, just growing up, it's part of like my being as a kid, so.
Yeah. Something prophetic. I don't know if you remember this, Gaylen, but there was a Newsweek cover issue, and on the issue, this is while we were shooting the film, it said the mauling of America. It was a prediction of how malls were going to take over the U.S. This is when we're shooting Dharma Dad. I thought, well, isn't that interesting?
Steve.
I think what's so amazing about it is it's unlike any movie I'd ever seen up to that point, in that it's a horror movie and it's an action movie and it's a romance and it's a comedy. It's almost like a giallo film that it just touches all the genres. And they hit it out of the park with the cast, and that it all worked. And it's one of those, like, for me as a kid, it's one of those movies that just is there. It's part of my childhood, and I still love it.
Anyone else? Yes?
As I said before, it just felt, to me, I saw when I was 13, and it felt grounded. It felt real. There's a rawness, and if it were to happen, it would happen like this. And I think that still stands today. The people feel real, the characters feel real, and I think that's why it stands to feel true.
What's great is that, yes, it was great to be in the film, yes, it was to have a star and blah, blah, blah. But the film has such longevity, and that's because of the fans. And that never escapes me. So it's the fans that have kept the movie alive for so long. So thanks.
Thank you.
Everyone. Oh, we have one more there. Really wants to share.
As someone from a younger generation that has seen this movie more sooner rather than growing up with other zombie content while growing up.
Yeah.
I haven't seen every zombie movie out there, but I felt like while I was watching this, it set the precedent for so many things you see in other zombie genre movies and TV shows that you see now. And it was great just seeing those things and how that has snowballed into more popular things today.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Wonderful.
All right. Everyone, give it up.